3 events complete in season number 6, 3 different winners. Welcome to SailGP. This is the Après Show.
It's Super Sunday here in Sydney. And after a great day for Los Gallos, the Bons Flying Roos, and Artemis,
nice.
It may look like plain sailing here in the Harbour City, but look out, there's sharks in the water. Who will win the race around Shark Island and take home the prize money? This is day 2 of the KPMG Sydney Sail Grand Prix.
And we welcome you into the Après Party as we continue to break down the racing that took place in the Harbour City of Sydney, Australia in the KPMG Sydney Sail Grand Prix. Todd Harris alongside Stevie Morrison, Hannah Diamond. All right, guys, it was not the weather we expected or the weather that Lisa Darmanin promised us, but Hannah, it was still great racing.
Yeah, it was great racing. These F50s are really hard to sail in these conditions. So while it wasn't top speeds, It was definitely about keeping the boat moving as fast as possible, connecting the bits of pressure, so some really tight racing.
Stevie, this was some slow speed chess, but it was still chess.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very, very hard. And I think, you know, the interesting thing with racing like that is you make a decision, it's 2-3 minutes later, you realise how much am I going to gain or how much am I going to lose. And it's a slow pain. It's almost death by 1,000 cuts if you get it wrong, and really satisfying when you get it right.
All right, let's take a look at the action that all went down, and it was a little different for the fleet because we were short 2 boats. Remember, DS Team France and the Blackfellows of New Zealand unable to go, so it's just 11. But here's the final. It came down to US SailGP, Emirates GBR, and Los Gallos, Spain, who, Hannah, we thought looked very good in practice days, but that was practice.
Yeah, they've looked really smooth all weekend and had a really great consistent series, but as always in SailGP, it's about that final race. And Dylan said before the race that it was going to be super important to get up and foiling. But it doesn't always make that first decision easy when you make that maneuver. And they ultimately kind of let the US get ahead at gate 2.
Stevie, there wasn't a lot of foiling, as we said, the F word. But when it mattered most, the US got it done. And that's really was the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you only need sort of 10-20 seconds longer on the foils, and then suddenly you're jumping out, you know, you've got sort of 10 meters a second you're gaining over the people, and that's what happened there. They foiled for probably 20 seconds longer, and that was a 200-meter gain. And then when it came down to a tricky decision, it was the top end of the course here. He ended up with a split. He wouldn't have wanted a split, but he stayed calm and he kept the boat going well. So they made some really good decisions under pressure.
So, Stevie, this isn't a huge shocker with the Americans winning this race because they've had history of doing well in light breeze, but they haven't won in a long time. You got to go back to season 4 when Jimmy Spithill was driving the boat. So how big is this for Taylor Canfield and the team? I
think for the team, it's huge, isn't it? I mean, I feel like they took a little while to maybe admit that there were a few slight startup teething issues. They've made some good changes. I think Mike Menninger coming in has been really good. Andrew Campbell coming in has been really good. You know, Anna Weiss going up into that position on the handles, you know, her athleticism there makes them very, very strong in those conditions. But yeah, I think there's been a little bit of humble pie, but they've done a really good job since, I'd say, last September, back end of the 2025 season, of making some tough decisions, admitting actually we're not quite on the course we want. And then they've been constant gains. And what I see when I watch them and I listen to their onboard comms is I see a really systematic, you know, process going on. Yes, their super strength still seems to be in that lighter condition. They're going to have to work on the up end. But we saw the first day in Perth, actually they were pretty good in the medium winds. You know, they've still got a weakness at the top end of things. They didn't look good on the second day in Perth. Didn't look great in Auckland. But they've got a super strength. And if you're coaching anyone, you desperately want a super strength because you can embrace that. And this is going to take a monkey off their back. It's going to really free them up.
Well, bottom line, the Americans get the win in Sydney Harbour. And after the event, we heard from their driver, Taylor Canfield.
Taylor, 463 days since you last made a final, even longer since you won one. Just sum up how it feels.
First off, that's a horrible stat. We don't want to think about that ever again. But yeah, incredible feeling. We're so proud. You know, proud to represent our country with, you know, all national team. Yeah, we've been putting in the effort, and we said we're going to stick to our process, and you know, that showed that we're getting better and improving all the time, and yeah, to get a win, it's huge.
It looked really tricky out there. What was the secret to success in the lighter conditions?
Yeah, you know, a tricky racetrack, but we came into the day with a really good plan, and you know, we knew we just had to, like, you know, keep the pedal down, stay in clean air, stay out of the packs. Yeah, our starting's always been pretty good in the lighter conditions, so we got off the line well, and you know, heads out of the boat, and we did a nice job. So
we're heading over to the American continent next. Just how important is momentum going into the next leg of the season?
It's huge. A lot less jet lag for us, so that's exciting. But yeah, overall, it's been a great series down here in the Southern Hemisphere, but we're looking to get back home.
Congratulations, go and celebrate. Thanks so much, Taylor. Cheers, man.
And the celebration is on in Australia. Taylor Canfield, the U.S. SailGP team, get the win. So 3 events, 3 different winners. As we take a look now at the season standings after 3 events, as we make the turn now for Brazil. And look at this, Hannah, did you anticipate, obviously, Emirates GBR being in there, the Bonds Flying Rouge, but U.S. SailGP, DS Team France also in the top 5?
No, definitely not. And I think you'd be hard-pushed to find many people that would have said that at the beginning of the season. But, the teams have to evolve as the season goes on, and so I think being near the top of the leaderboard is really rewarding, making the changes that needed to be made, and that's only going to continue to be the case going forwards.
Stevie, what's the biggest shocking news as you look at that table? What surprises you the most, and what, like one of those, I did not see that coming?
Well, I mean, I think the shocking news is obvious, isn't it? It's seeing probably the most consistent and successful team of the last couple of years, the Blackfoils. They had that incident in Auckland, unfortunately, didn't we? And we're still left here grateful that no one's been, really, really seriously hurt and that everyone's getting better. But seeing them at the bottom, they're not here. It sounds very likely they're not going to be in Rio. I don't know any facts on that, but it sort of seems like it's going to be a race to get DS Automobile France to there. But yeah, I mean, shocking-wise, it's the Blackfoils for me. If we go from a purely racing perspective, I'd say North Star. I'm pretty disappointed with them. I think they've got a big sort of whatever it is, 6 weeks ahead. They've got to hit Control-Alt-Delete, and they've got to find some solutions because that's not good enough.
You talk about consistency, and obviously the most consistent team, obviously the reigning and defending champions, Emirates GBR. They win in Perth. Hannah, they came back, decent showing in Auckland, and here they are in another final yet again. So they're not winning every race, but they're always at the top of the table.
Yeah, that's right. So I think they'll probably be really happy with the beginning of this season. But I think one of the biggest things for this weekend was I think they would admit to themselves that they didn't race particularly well yesterday. They were picking up kind of okay, but not great scores all the way through. But to still just be able to make it into the final, that's a huge thing. To be able to make the final on not your best weekend is probably a better feeling than knowing that you have to race your best to make that final each weekend.
And Stevie, from the defending champions to a new team, Artemis comes on board. Really not a new team when you bring in Draper and you've got Nathan Outteridge, but they're making a splash right out of the gate. And we've seen other teams come in and take 2 or 3 years before they're having these kinds of results. Yeah, and do you know what? I actually picked them to well, you picked them to win. I thought they'd do well, really well here. I think I've learned an interesting thing over the weekend, actually, because of the national rule on board. Chris Draper, when they go to 4 on board, Chris Draper can't actually sail on the boat. So they had a guy called Dave Gilmore come in, who, phenomenal sailor, but with the best will in the world, he's not Chris Draper. Right.
And so actually, in the wind strength where I thought they'd be the team to beat, they weren't as good as I thought they were. So that'll be something for them to think about. But yes, I mean, they're sat in 6th, brand new team. I say brand new team in inverted commas. There's so much experience and ability on that boat. But I think they'll be a little bit disappointed with how things went here this weekend. But it was that kind of weekend. I mean, the Bonds Flying Rouge, this is the first time in the history of SailGP that they've not made the final here in Sydney.
Unbelievable. And we turn our attention now to DS Team France, obviously in that big collision at Auckland with the Blackfoils. They do pick up 5 points, so they're given the average because it wasn't their fault. Their boat's damaged. They can't race. Both of you, is that fair?
Well, it's a tough one. I think if you were DS Team France, you'd probably be feeling still a little bit hard done by because all the teams want to be out there racing as much as possible. But I'm sure all the teams will have an opinion on it, and it will vary across the fleet depending on how that impacts you. But I think they have to be given something. They were deemed to be not at fault for the collision in Auckland, and it has such an impact on the end of the season. So I do think they have to do something, but I'm sure it will split opinions.
DS Team France should be on the line and got that great news that they should be ready for the April 11th and 12th event in Brazil, the NL Rio Sail Grand Prix. So we'll get the French back on the line, Stevie, but not so much for the Blackfoils.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, just logistically, we've seen the SailGP Tech team have produced miracles.
Yeah.
I think possibly to get 2 boats from the state they're in to be ready for Rio is more than a miracle. And again, I don't think it's a case of putting your hand in a hat. As much as I feel it was really unfortunate for the Blackfoils and it was a pure racing incident, it definitely wasn't the French fault. And so they're going to get the first boat that's back, aren't they? But again, fortunately, that's a decision that's well above my pay grade, Todd. Yeah.
One of the teams that we thought would do really well in Sydney, their home event, is the Bonds Flying Rouge. They win in Auckland. So would you rather win in your home event, or I know how much they love beating the Kiwis?
I think, a home event is always special, regardless of whether you win or not. It makes it extra special if you can win. But I think we're starting to see some of those rivalries really build up. And I'd say at the moment, probably the biggest one is between Bonds Flying Rouge and Emirates GBR, two of the kind of powerhouses of SailGP. But, everyone enjoys their home event. And I think we didn't get the conditions we were necessarily hoping for in Sydney, but it was still some great racing.
Stevie, as we turn the page now, we start to look away from New Zealand and Auckland, New Zealand and Australia, and the next event coming up in Brazil. How do you see Team Spain, winners of season 4? Hannah said it the other day, and I thought it was really great. They're just consistently solid.
Yeah, how do I see them? I saw last year as a really good season for them, despite not making the final, not defending their title, but it confirmed they were one of the players. They, to me, in the sort of, the marginal foiling of yesterday, they looked like the best team. I think today they had an interesting psychological job where they had to just make sure they didn't mess it up.
Right.
So I think that's always quite hard. They did a good job of that. They comfortably in the final with a race to spare. And then it was like a minute out. Fletcher went at them in the pre-start. Hopefully we'll get a chance in other platforms to look at the detail of that. But Dylan made them late. Good tactical sailing by Dylan, and they were then late for the start. And as soon as you're behind, they made a bit of a meal of it. But yeah, 2 finals. And they look really, really good in that light to medium stuff. So when you ask the question, would you rather win in Auckland or Sydney? And as Tom Slingsby, yes, you want to win in front of your home crowd, but you look ahead to the final in Abu Dhabi, it's probably going to be at the lighter end of the scale. It was sort of foiling conditions, wasn't it, the final last year, but it wasn't windy. Slingsby's got a reputation as the windy weather specialist. He will want to lose that. He'll be focusing on his light wind sailing. And I think he'd have rather have won here for the wind conditions as much as anything else.
So we get about 40 days until the next event, which takes place in Rio. Obviously, for those 40 days, Hannah, the Americans get a gloat and say, look at us, we're the hottest team in SailGP. As we turn the page, though, and head to the Americas, and a first-time visit to South America for SailGP, what other teams do you think the pressure is really going to be on them? They're going to have to start stepping up, because before you know it, we're going to be halfway through the season.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the events are going through really quickly now, aren't they? And for me, I have to say North Star Canada.
Yeah.
I think they've always been kind of just on the cusp of getting an okay result rather than just on the cusp of getting a good result. And we see from their starts, I'm sure they'll be really disappointed with how they've put themselves into that start box, because they always seem to be from 45 seconds a minute out a bit on the back foot. There's time to look at the things that they need to change, but I think we need to see something kind of quite drastically done between now and the next event if they want to make any moves up the leaderboard.
And other than North Star, who do you see that needs to is going to feel the pressure, obviously, when we get to Brazil?
I think the Swiss, I think the Germans, I think Rottwell Denmark, I think North Star, I think Mubadala.
They're all
of them have not, they don't look anywhere near winning, do they? And you don't turn up to just be a passenger at these events, do you? You turn up to win. And that's what we expect of the sailors on those boats. So I think they've got a chance to reset. It's going to be different things. I think Taylor's point in that interview we saw was really interesting, the jet lag. I mean, that's a big deal. If you're traveling in for these events and you're not there for too long before, they don't get a lot of sailing time. So how do you reset your jet lag? And all those things are interesting. But, we move across to the Americas. And I think it's, that excuse is gone, But yeah, there's a lot of teams with the pressure on, but I'm with Hannah. I think North Star probably has been my biggest surprise, only because I expect so much of them. I know how good they are.
So it'll be a first-time visit for the league as SailGP heads to South America in a visit to Rio, and this one will be special as the fans turn out. Remember, we were supposed to go there last year. It got postponed, but now it is all on. April 11th and 12th, we will be in Rio de Janeiro. So final thoughts as we turn the page now, 3 events down, and we've got a whole lot of sailing still to go. But what is your takeaway? We've now left New Zealand, we've now left Australia, and now everything's in front of us, including the Americas and Europe and then the Middle East.
Yeah, I think the season is sort of well and truly underway now, isn't it? And for those teams who aren't quite where they want to be, then there is a period of time where they can make some of those changes. But I think, again, like last season, we can see so many different teams winning events. So it's whether you go all out to try and win an event or you just try and creep your way up the leaderboard. But we're sort of running out of time for those big changes to be made if you want to make an impact on this season. Yeah,
I think there's some teams out there that are thinking that mindset of we're going to be in the final at the end of the season, let's just keep chipping away. And I think Emirates GBR have been pretty spectacular in very different wind speeds. But yeah, for a lot of other teams, there's work to do still, but every team is good enough to go out and take a win. And so that means that in this racing, Pete Burling said it's the shortest ever SailGP race, that last race. You've got to be able to adapt. You've got to have those different skill sets.
So once again, 3 events down, 3 different winners. It is Emirates GBR, the Bonds Flying Roos, and the US Sail GP team that have all tasted victory here in season number 6. So for my colleagues Hannah Diamond and Stevie Morrison, I'm Todd Harris saying so long from now. This has been the Après Show on Sail GP. We'll see you next month in Brazil.
Rio sets the tempo, and Sail GP turns up the pace. For the first time, the world's fastest racing league explodes onto Guanabara Bay. High-speed action just meters from shore in one of the world's most electric cities. And leading the charge, hometown hero Martini Grail and the Mubadala Brazil Sail GP team. World-class racing, pure Rio rhythm.